Once upon a time in a world of magic, light, and darkness.
The full moon began its slow ascent over Sirendar, casting a pale, ethereal glow over the village. The anticipation of the feast filled the air as villagers gathered in the central square, tables laden with an array of dishes, roasted game, fresh fruits, and delicate pastries. The scent of spiced wine mingled with the aroma of grilled meats, promising a night of revelry and indulgence. At the head of the table sat the Cassitan and Ravni, surrounded by maidens dressed in vibrant gowns that flowed like water as they moved. Their eyes gleamed with a mix of curiosity and intrigue as they leaned in closer, their voices a melody of laughter and teasing.
You are quite the mysterious traveler. Where do you come from, sir? And what brings you to our hidden village?
The Cassitan smiled, his eyes sparkling with amusement. I come from a place where the stars guide my path and the moon whispers secrets, he replied playfully. As for why I am here, perhaps it was the allure of such captivating company. The maidens giggled, leaning in even closer, their attention entirely on him. But the Cassitan's gaze wandered, observing the warriors who stood vigilant on the outskirts of the gathering. Their helmets were adorned with light-blocking blindfolds, an unusual sight that caught his curiosity. What do you do at night when the moon is full? The Cassitan asked, his tone casual, yet his eyes sharp. Surely such a beautiful village has a lively nightlife. The maidens exchanged puzzled glances, unsure how to answer.
We rest, mostly. There is not much to do in Surrender after dark.
And the warriors? The Cassitan continued, gesturing subtly to the women who stood guard, their expressions hidden behind their helmets. Why do they wear those helmets with blindfolds? Another awkward silence followed. A maiden shrugged delicately.
It is just the way things have always been. Our warriors are protectors, and they guard us with their sight turned inward, focused on their duty.
Mazel, seated at the far end of the table, watched the exchange with a tight expression. She had tried to engage the Cassitan in conversation, to draw his attention away from the other maidens, but his questions had disarmed her attempts. His evasive answers and calm demeanor had left her feeling frustrated and dismissed. Finally, unable to contain her irritation, she stood abruptly, her chair scraping against the ground, and stormed off, her gown swirling around her in a flash of color. The Cassitan's gaze followed her departure, a flicker of something unreadable in his eyes, before he turned back to the remaining maidens with an apologetic smile. Forgive me if I have been a poor guest. I am merely a curious traveler, trying to understand the ways of this intriguing village. Before the maidens could respond, Herza, the village leader, stepped forward. Her presence commanded silence as the chatter died down. She approached the Cassitan, her eyes filled with both authority and an almost imperceptible apprehension.
Herza nodded towards the Cassitan and Ravni.
Welcome to Sirendar, traveler. You ask many questions about our ways, and perhaps it is time you understood why things are as they are here.
She gestured for the villagers to gather closer, and the maidens and warriors alike leaned in. Their expressions attentive, Herza's voice softened, taking on a tone of somber reverence.
Once long ago, Sirendar was like any other village in the kingdom of Mador. Men and women lived here together, our community strong and united.
Her expression changed before she continued.
But we had a neighboring village, Gubash, with whom we had a bitter dispute. They waged war against us, and though our men fought bravely and defeated them, Gubash would not accept their loss.
She paused, her eyes drifting toward the full moon, which now hung high in the sky, bathing the village in its cool light.
They hired a witch from the Order of the Darkness who placed a curse upon us. No man could spend more than 2 days in Sirendar without meeting a horrible fate, and no woman could bear a son. Only daughters.
Herza closed her eyes for a moment dramatically before continuing.
They believed this curse would leave us defenseless, without sons to grow into warriors, and without men to lead our village.
A hushed murmur spread through the crowd as Herza's words sank in. Even the maidens who had heard this tale many times before seemed moved anew by its telling. Ravni, seated beside the Cassitan, looked around with wide eyes, clearly troubled by the implications of such a curse. Herza continued, her gaze sweeping over the assembled villagers.
We suffered greatly in those early years. Grief, shame, and tragedy befell us, but we are resilient. We found a way to survive, to ensure our future, and to protect ourselves from those who would seek to harm us.
Her eyes met the Cassitan's, a flicker of something unspoken passing between them.
We have adapted, stranger, and we continue our lineage in a manner that is both necessary and sacred.
The Cassitan inclined his head, his expression respectful, but distant, as though he were absorbing her words without truly internalizing them. Your resilience is admirable, village leader. It must take great strength to maintain your community in such a way. Herza's lips pressed into a thin line, as if she were holding back a surge of emotion. She took a deep breath, then stepped closer, her voice lowering so that only those nearest could hear.
It is not just strength we need, but sacrifice. For our village to survive, we must continue our lineage. We ask you, traveler, and your companion to help us in this most sacred duty.
A shocked gasp rippled through the crowd, and even the Cassitan raised an eyebrow. Herza's face flushed slightly, but she continued, her voice steady.
I understand this may be an unusual request, but Sirendar is cursed. We cannot leave our village, and we cannot bear sons. Our only hope is to bring travelers into our midst, to ensure that our people continue.
She took another step forward, her gaze locked with the Cassitan's.
I will do whatever is necessary for Sirendar, even offer myself to you, if that is what it takes. The silence that followed her words was heavy, broken only by the soft rustling of the leaves and the distant call of a night bird. The maidens watched, some with expressions of shock, others with barely concealed hope. Ravni looked utterly bewildered. his mouth opening and closing as he struggled to process what had just been asked of them.
The Cassitan's expression softened as he regarded Herza, a hint of sadness in his eyes. I am deeply honored by your offer, village leader, but I cannot help you in this matter. My companion and I are here to investigate a different concern, one that does not involve the continuation of your people. He gestured gently to Ravani, who seemed to exhale a breath he hadn't realized he'd been holding. We appreciate your hospitality, and we are grateful for the feast and the company. But we must decline. Herza's shoulders slumped slightly, but she managed a nod.
I understand it was a desperate request.
The Cassitan rose from his seat, bowing his head respectfully. Thank you for sharing your story with us, and for your hospitality. We will take our leave now. Good night.
With that, he turned and began to make his way back to their lodgings, Ravni hurrying to keep up.
The villagers watched them go, their eyes filled with a mix of disappointment, confusion, and lingering hope.
As they reached their small cottage, Ravni finally broke his silence. "Sir, what was all that about?" She was serious, wasn't she? About needing us too. Well, yes, she was serious. The Cassitan replied calmly as he closed the door behind them. Sarandar is caught in a cruel web of fate, one that I intend to unravel. But not in the way they expect. Ravni frowned, still looking troubled. And this curse, what exactly is it? Are we in danger? He placed a reassuring hand on Ravni's shoulder. The truth will be known to you soon. For now, rest. Soon we will begin our work. Ravni nodded again, though he still looked uneasy. I'll try, sir.